We push into the next turn, which is what, April 21st, I think. We end up with rain again, and now my plans are, I might spend a point down here. I already pulled my points in. I'm up to 44, which is just at the good point, which is kind of a problem because if I spend any activations, I'm going to drop below that. But I think it's kind of important for me to get Lefebvre down here to face Charles, and then bring Davout into play against him as well. We got Bessier coming on here. I could run Bessier ahead to go take command of something. He comes in with a major general in his location though, and I think I'm gonna use his initiative to help move that major general along the way, so I associated that with him. The Massena Oudinot. Is Hiller that important to chase is kind of the question. See, the thing is, a battle you might cause a couple more casualties than you do otherwise. It's really hard to justify spending your action points that seem so important, and it'd be hard to get later in the game. And that honestly, the loss of them might end up costing you strength points anyway because of attrition rolls that you need to make. It's very hard to justify charging after something to try to get it in battle. The reason for Lefebvre is that the Davout-Charles combination isn't completely, it's a close fight, right? So it seems like spending a point for Lefebvre might be worthwhile, but I can't be absolutely certain that it's in my best interests there. Looks to me like Colorat has probably gotten away. Not going to be able to chase him. Roseburg, he's gotten away if he wants to. So these are the three guys I could try to attack. Now, if I could kind of get behind them with flanking forces or something, good stuff might happen. Flanking forces are always in danger, though. If they're kind of weak, the counterattack can be against them. So I don't know. It depends on how the counterattacks parse out. But you could end up, if you end up with multi-hex positionings against an enemy, you can get in a situation where your weak spot is hit by their strong forces, and that can kind of hurt. But yeah, we're gonna go for our pursuit. It's just whether or not to spend to attack Hiller here. If Massena gets his activation, he has enough force to screw with Hiller pretty hard. Do I need to activate Oudinot then? Well, I kind of don't want Oudinot. He's pretty potent too. I was kind of wondering, do I want Oudinot? Do I want to spend an action point? So I think if either of them makes it, I'm good with the fight. And if both of them make it, great. Maybe I can make it more difficult to retreat. I don't know. I doubt it. All right. So my moves. Lefebvre moved forward, paying the administrative point. Davout failed to be able to reinforce him, so I swung Napoleon in place to take command there instead. I sent Napoleon's little buddies off. Lannes over here is going to take over Oudinot. I can find him. He doesn't really have Oudinot under him, but whatever. Keeps the stacking in control. Oudinot is just an unemployed leader. Oh shit. I just moved something from General A. This is one problem with the tracks. Now I have to look it up because, hey, it's fairly close. So whoever was at Regensburg, 0815, but this is the kind of mistake that's very easy to make when you have a camera in your hand. So it's Coutard who just got moved. Coutard from A, and I hope I had things right. Udno has these 2 3s. And move over. Now, for this battle, Lan is unable to command Massena, who also made it at cost. He took a casualty, and I think Lefebvre took a casualty as well. Massena is able to command Lan. He has enough points in that, but what it means is I'm not going to get my star against Hiller, which sucks, but you know, you gotta go with what you got. Massena's kind of an interesting guy because he's not very good on the battlefield particularly, but he can command a lot of troops, and he's got a whole lot of troops with him, which has some effect. One thing that I haven't done yet, that is kind of sort of the first thing you do in this game, is I may have forces that don't really belong, so I can perhaps fix Massena. Massena's got 11 here. I got Rome. Oh, this guy only holds 10. Okay. I may have Rome and some of these other commanders for more forces. It doesn't look like I have much play. But, you know, if you can get rid of some of the counters, then you can make your command situation better, and maybe Lan could command Massena. It would have to be Lan's forces. I still want to call him 1A. That would get reduced. What you start off with is fairly full forces, but you know, you want to get rid of counters as quickly as possible so that you can command all your troops more easily. All right, now the Austrians have the opportunity to try to run away. Even trying to can cause them attrition losses, though, and it might be better to take battle casualties. One of the interesting things in the game, standing and fighting is less painful than running away usually. The only advantage to running away is you maybe get to put some movement in play as well. So I'm going to have to look, as always, at this and pay all my attention there. We won't be going through that mechanism very much while I'm playing. Hopefully never again. The only roll that the Austrians made for their initiative was to move Roseburg. I didn't check with Colorado. Everybody else kind of checked. I didn't check with Maximilian. Hiller couldn't possibly move. He couldn't succeed against Lan. Charles couldn't get away. He had a chance. Not much of one. Louis couldn't get involved. He had a chance. Not much of one. So now we have a fight between Napoleon and Charles. So I'm going to go into it. You know, I'm kind of curious about how fast this goes without me jumping in. But this could be an important battle. Right now, this half of the turn took maybe 10 minutes, including video and everything. So you can kind of see, as long as I'm not stopping and showing every detail or whatever, as long as there's a little bit of familiarity, and I have to, you know, I'm still a little rusty, the turns don't go by that long. Don't look at how extensive the explanation turn was. And this is the case with some of the other things. You know, I did the modern era thing that it went pretty quickly once I wasn't paying much attention. All right, so let's get our strengths here. Napoleon has Lefebvre with him, who has 7, 12, 13, 14, 21, 24, and I have artillery. Napoleon is the attacker. It's in clear terrain. There's not going to be anything special there. Charles has 15, 16, 17, and I think that's Hohenzollern, who has nothing with him. So, however, Okay, we have to try to remember that 17 because we don't have enough calculator anymore. We do have the artillery fire. And both sides have it now. French have 4. Austrians have 4. Awesome. Let's do the French artillery first. 5 or 6 either side hits. French hit. Austrians do not. Charles will take a loss. Trying to decide which unit to eliminate if possible. Okay, so it's now a 1-to-1 attack in non-affecting terrain. Both sides have a star. This is not a great fight. We were counting on a different, larger stack being there. Davout stack. And we roll a die. And we get a big French victory, 1-5. So the French take 1 casualty. Who do I have with me? I have Lefebvre with me. He will, of course, take Bavarian losses. I want to get those Bavarians killed while I can use them. A 5-point... Oh, I forgot to pick the things. Charles has no interest in standing here. He would have picked a pursuit. Napoleon would have taken a pitched. So 1... Oh, this is problematic because I can't go through this. And I have to end up 5 hexes away, which means I think I have to cut this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I guess. It's not terrible, but Napoleon can chase him, and we find the resistance matrix. It's 5 versus 4. Napoleon has a 2-point penalty on that. He is a 5. It was 5 hexes. And I roll a 6, which means I can pursue for 3 hexes. 1, 2, 3. And that causes 3 casualties to Charles. 1, 2, 3, we'll reorganize or whatever afterwards. And the Liechtenstein unit no longer counts against me, which is awesome. And I get to put it over in the stuff that I could bring into play if I need to. That looks about it. Put the markers here and go to the Austrian side of the turn. They got reinforcements coming as well. So fast, I got the attack on Hiller. This is going to be kind of painful. All right, so the first thing is, since these are adjacent, Massena can define them as a force between them. So I'm going to be able to combine Lannes with Massena because I've got 1, 2, 3, 4.5, and 2 puts me to 6.5. I'm able to command all of this. So I add up my strength, 11, 18, 21, 25, 35, 42, 50, 56. It's clear terrain. Town doesn't do anything. Who is that? Hiller, I think. 6, 14. All right. Okay, so we get a 4-to-1 attack there. Anything exciting? There's no artillery. Chit picks. They're the normal pitched pursuit. We went out of there. I get a 4. It's a 1-4 again. The commander, Massena, has to take the first hit. I really don't like these. Even though they're in my advantage, Hiller, of course, retreats 4. I think he has to go that way. Let me look at my retreat priorities. Must extend the full number of hexes. Cannot retreat into a hex. Must be the path that costs the least. Must go through hexes vacant. See, these say if possible, which is weird. The others say must. But I think this is a legitimate retreat, and it's along the road, so it's the fastest. We take the quick check here now. Who gets to pursue? I gotta stop and check that. Choice. I can define a portion of the force and pursue them. And there might be an advantage to using cav for that. I can't find a rule for that. I know that there's supposed to be an advantage if all guards are, if only guards are pursuing. I think there's a bonus for cav as well, doing the pursuit. However, unless I can get into this hex, a cav is unlikely, a pure cav force is unlikely to do much. I think with the rain, I'm better off just pursuing with a smaller force. But the question is, or with the full force. But the question is, do I pursue with all of it or just with Lon? It's a difference on the resistance table and on the pursuit table. On the pursuit table, it's a column shift. On the resistance table, Lon versus Hiller. In either case, it's going to be a 1-point penalty to the die roll. So then the question becomes, oh, here's where it is. There's a -1 if it's cav guard or a combination of cav and guard. And that's how you can get into the opponent's hex. But there's a +1 for the rain, right? No. But there's a +1 for the resistance table. So, honestly, I think I'm just going to use Lon and not try to get the extra movement for the other force. And yeah. Unfortunately, I roll a 6. Which means I only get 2 hexes. And that's here. And that means 2 casualties to Hiller. And we're not seeing the kind of damage we'd like to do. As long as you're willing to trade ground, you can do all right. No reason for all these forces here, right? Nordman, if I absorb the Kotalinsky, that puts me to 10. And I can get rid of this command and clean it out of there. All right, now I'm actually done, and it's Charles's turn. And again, they're going to try to get away. But it's time for me to work. So for the Austrians, I spent a point to move Louis back. Maximilian's here digging in. I'm using counters from TSS for that. We'd have nothing to indicate. And this isn't an optional rule, you know, so you got to figure out some way of counting up how many turns somebody's been digging. It's like a 6-turn thing. I'm definitely spending that. I spent one on Hiller, and I started moving, and he's got like 4 or 5 movement points. I don't remember. Well, he's got 4 or 5. 1, 2. He's moved 3. That corresponds. But I'm about to overrun the headquarters here, and maybe the supply source as well, because the French, by attacking him, put it in a situation where he could actually, his retreat put him in a position where he could disrupt the French back line. That seems the most valuable use for Hiller at this point. He looked like he was dead if he didn't, you know. I mean, he could have run back, but trying to disrupt this seems like it's much, much more useful. In the zone of control is enough to disrupt it and send it back. That's going to cause some problems for the French, I assume. Although, I don't know. I know they can trace supply off of these. I don't think they can trace administrative points. Now the question is what to do with my next 2 points. of movement. I could chase down here and displace it up to here. That doesn't really do me anything. And then attack the tiny force there. Again, killing that garrison doesn't really do me any good. So I'm going to head back, and my attrition's good. I checked it. I could spend enforced march. That would be a good way to get killed. I think I've done enough damage with what I did. Question is whether I need to get Charles back here or rely on luck to get me there. I think I'm going to rely on luck because honestly, the Napoleon versus Charles matchup wasn't that bad. I'm having trouble with the mental mechanical complexity of the organizational displays. Not surprising. I think I illegally moved Von Damme and moved him as if he was just a loose leader coming on. I look at the reinforcements. He has troops with him. He came in back on the first turn of 20th of April. He could have made it where he is. So I don't know for sure. I'm going to leave him where he is, which is assigned to Davout. But at this point, no, he's going to probably split off. Right now, the French are going to try to position themselves in a place to make Hiller pay for his audacity. Other than that, I've got some real problems because I don't have command points to spend, which is okay. But I also, I don't know. I'm just really getting frustrated and flustered by having to keep counting all the troops and look them up. And I don't know how much easier it's getting. I remember in Napoleon at Bay it felt easier, but it may just be that there was a cluster, that, I don't know, that there were so many units you couldn't move or whatever. Here there's enough pieces on the board that this system is already beginning to be too taxing. And you can only imagine what happens when they start adding the complexity that the later games have to them. Where it becomes harder and harder to try to figure this. This, at least, I have very clear goals. The Austrians want to run away, at least in my mind, and the French want to pursue them and gain as much ground as they can. That's pretty easy. But outside of that, I'm starting to run into, enough problems with different things I have to remember and keep track of. That's just kind of, I don't know, it feels like it's beyond me these days. But it never really got me excited, Maybe it's just that, the concepts behind these operational games appeal to me, but the actual play of them generally doesn't. And I have to say the same thing goes with this, the great campaigns of the American Civil War. Lots of players love those. The Red Sash stuff. It all just sort of, I don't know, it's not, there's a certain ease to me of playing a tactical game, even a fairly complicated one. I know Arquebus was causing me issues, but there's a certain ease to that where I'm just looking and I kind of know what I'm going to do. And with the strategic games, I feel like I kind of know what I'm going to do too. But these go into a level of detail of maneuvering, positioning, dealing with the supplies, etc. That just, I've never really caught the bug for, I guess, and that makes it harder to internalize those mechanisms. Shift into the next turn, and the French pretty much failed to do anything of value. Von Damme moved a hex, Lon moved a little bit. Remember, this is the reaction move. It's expensive in terms of supply, in terms of attrition chances. I had a lot of failures too. Davout and Napoleon both failed. Massena is getting some help. I sent Oudinot back to help take some of the burden off him because he's just got too many strength points to move at any rate. And that puts us, into like 23rd or something? Yeah, two-day turns. Hit the 23rd of April turn. the effect on the French supply center is not that big. I think I lose 1 turn's worth of points because of when it got knocked out. It's back in play at the beginning of my turn, which I think that's actually pretty common because when it moves, unless you're moving it a long distance, it moves during, it moves down here during the March phase, center of operations segment. That's when it actually moves. Now let me see, is it, wait, let me see, I just saw this. Oh no, so it's still out of effect for now, but still it was a better time. So I can't give any commands. So the French are going to be entirely operating off initiative still, which is not a good time to be launching many attacks. Hiller, obviously, if I can get my grasp on him, I will. But Napoleon's way far in front. He's not going to be trying to force the river, I don't think. At the end of the 24th of April, and move Napoleon. I didn't really see a point. I got to bring more forces into play. These guys are slowly trickling their way up through reaction movement and otherwise. I don't really like spending points. I told you that. It's important for my attrition levels to keep that number kind of high, and losing a turn of it was kind of shitty. Hiller could have gone back and swacked it again, actually, but I decided preventing the river crossing was more important. We've got some fairly large forces here. Hiller's there, not with Liechtenstein, but Lewis and Hiller have joined together there, which makes these probably weaker. It's hard to really pay attention to where things end up, especially the way I play Wandering Away. But honestly, if I was playing opposed, I probably wouldn't be looking at the board. I'd go find something else to do, read something, whatever, while the other player's taking his turn and doing the mechanical actions he needs to. Yeah, this isn't big enough to entrench. It's possible that the French could advance north of the Danube, but it's not very useful because if they want the Passau supply headquarters, they kind of have to control the South Danube. Therefore, I'm not all that worried about protecting this. The Austrians didn't move forward here. Von Damme trying to get closer. Right. And I mean, you could say, wow, Regensburg, maybe I could, rush over there, but you'll take losses if you try to do something massive like that. So usually those opportunities, they're visible on the map. You could say, yeah, I could do it, but you're going to pay a huge cost to do it in terms of casualties, and it may just not be worth it. We enter the 25th of April turn. Some replacement points go on the tracks. During the player's turns, I can allocate these. I always have a little bit of difficulty doing this. It's like, what are my force strengths and everything? Well, force strengths are one of the big things that you have to keep track of in this. You want to keep them to these unnatural positions on the column, so you can kind of optimize how well your forces can move versus how many strength points they're bringing to a fight. Not that strength points to a fight is kind of an optimizable value too, because if you kind of know what the enemy has, you can go for multiples of that. But that's not really so worrisome because that information is largely easily forgotten. The other thing I'm working on right now is I essentially have an extra leader. I have Lefebvre kicking around here. I could incorporate his forces into Napoleon's 1, 2, 3, 4.5. Napoleon can easily command the combined forces. And that releases a 3 initiative leader, better than Oudinot, to go do something else. That something else probably isn't to take over Oudinot's troops. I kind of needed to pull him out of Massena's forces anyway. But Davout is sitting with close to 30 strength points and is a little further back. And in order to reduce the load on the attrition values. Spreading that force out makes more sense. I'm probably going to want to keep Napoleon fairly consolidated, even though he's at about the same strength point, I think. 7, 9, 13, and I think I've got about 14 here. So that's 27. That puts me pretty close to that. I can allocate a cav. Unfortunately, the only cav that Napoleon has with him right now is Bavarian stuff. I could add another unit, but that seems like a silly idea. Bessier is full up, I believe. He's got 3 strength points in his unit, so he can't do it easily. Let's take a look at Lon. Lon appears to be full up with his cav, so I probably don't want to add. Udno. Okay, Udno does not have an extra cav available. Massena is full up. All right, let's go look at Davout. He's full. Yeah, I don't have a space for extra cav right now. I could put it somewhere, I'm sure. A cav major general somewhere now. Major General D, that's here. He doesn't want it. A is full. Yeah, I guess I could create another unit for that extra strength point. I don't see much values of that because it starts hindering my capabilities. You know, the more command points I'm expending. Could I create something that's bonus? No, I don't have any dot units available. Oh, yeah, go in there. But they seem to be more of a thing that the Austrians have, where, you know, I could swap out a regular infantry for one of those commanders and use that. So yeah, I think I'm gonna consolidate Lefebvre with Napoleon. And take care of that. Now, is this a horribly complicated thing to deal with? Well, you know, it's a burden you're not used to in most games, right? It's what a lot of the effort in this game is about, in my opinion. I don't feel like there's not a whole lot of battles of any importance. Usually one side or the other just is willing to give up ground rather than fight. Especially in this one. There's a lot of ground to give. And I don't really get a lot of intricacy in like trying to outmaneuver someone. Generally, maybe because of my stinginess with the action points, generally the game's about performing these mechanical deeds and seeing what happens, whether my units move, you know, and then moving them, which may be kind of unsatisfying in a lot of cases. Napoleon at Bay, I think, and I'm trying to discover what it is that I like about Napoleon at Bay, but don't like about most of the games of the system. Napoleon at Bay, I think, has you in this kind of position where, yeah, you really do want to spend those action points sometimes. And it's really important to get things moving. And that's always the case where sometimes now and then it's really important to get something moving. But it's not that clear in this one. You know, you have to make the trade-off. You have to make the explicit decision that I need to move faster and it's worth me taking higher attrition to do so. And then if you do make that decision, calculating out how that higher attrition comes. Does it come out of moving further than you normally would be able to? Or does it come out of spending the action points, which creates attrition problems throughout your line? And since that stuff's like money and I don't like spending money for anything, I'm just like, I'll hoard those and take casualties elsewhere. Well, they're both limited resources and I just have a a preference, almost a pathological one for one side or the other. Yeah. Anyway, let's see what the weather is. It's raining again. Let's push into the 27th. Napoleon makes his way to the river line. That's important. I can start bridging, or even better, I have a pontoon bridge that I can force my way across and then get rid of whatever advantage there is to the river. It's not much. This is affecting terrain anyway, but I can get more pressure on the Austrians and push them maybe across the river, which would be shitty for them. These Austrians ought to be blowing their bridges. Shit. I always forget about bridges, and they're an important part, especially for this scenario. I want to talk, like Davout, by splitting his forces, was able to succeed in moving them all in the forced march period, etc. So we got things going forward. Vandamme is not chasing after Collerat. Collerat's kind of starving out there. He's actually taking losses due to the rain, etc., without moving. Yeah. So, I mean, he's not making checks during, basically both of these guys do not make checks during the forced march segment because they'd have a chance of getting hurt due to that. They're so far out of their supply line now. Collerat has to get into the line of that, and then once he's there, and he's not too far from it, but I don't know exactly where it is. Once he's there, then he can probably operate down in here and provide some sort of threat. And in fact, this might, there might be a range from here as well. That's 26. Geez, I have no idea how far 26 goes from here because, yeah. It looks probably too far. I'm assuming he's out of command, but if he gets closer, he will be. I'm going to consider those bridges and see if the Austrians are going to start whether they can have wrecked them by now. Here is why I have the Austrian and French listed, because the one table that's different in the two charts is the bridging table. So, let's make my rolls. They would have gotten to do it here. I'll ignore their failure before. So I want to damage this bridge. And I have succeeded in the little damage marker on it. Okay. These are all primary bridges, well, primary river bridges. It doesn't matter how big they are. 5, that's a failure. We're not going to go back in time. It doesn't make much difference. And a 1 is a success. So we got everything except Charles's bridge. Now, I'm not really sure that this is a big deal at all because I have capacity with the pontoon bridge to get across and to fight my way across, even if the bridge is there. I don't want to hit this because it's already fortified. And that's, adds another 20 strength points to the stack if it's a big stack. So I want to try to clear the river and work on cutting Landshut out instead of actually having to fight it, force them to leave because of supply considerations. The reason it's not that big a deal is attacking across the bridge is really just adds affecting terrain to the line. It doesn't change anything else. It's really not that hard to attack across the bridges. So, in that case, wow, it would be a big deal to crush this, except that I do have the pontoon bridge available, and I was planning on using it anyway. It may slow things down, though. The French might be able to force their way across against Charles. Charles should have, he's got 2 turns there. Let me give him one more shot. He actually has 3, but we'll just give him one more. Okay, he succeeded in blowing that too. That makes things a little harder because otherwise the French could just charge across. And, yes, this is where getting used to the system is a big deal. Bridges are pretty damn easy to repair and to destroy. Since those are primary bridges, they can't be destroyed. If I wanted to repair it as the French, I would need a 1 through 3, and there would be a penalty because of the Austrians on the other side of it. So I would actually need a 1 or a 2. That might take me quite a while. It's probably better to pontoon across, and then I can pick up the pontoon with another leader. I think Napoleon and Lefebvre probably have enough to cope with Charles. And then from there we see what happens, I guess. Again, I was considering sending Vendôme up, but Collerat seems to be in enough trouble on his own. Holding Regensburg is of some value. And as long as the Austrians are there, I need a force up there. Just because they could do something stupid, they could send a small force down and interfere with my supplies. In fact, where they are is kind of obnoxious to me. I had papers got onto the map and kind of flipped it a little, so things got dislodged a bit. I'm making best guesses as to where things are. I used to have some little removable tape. I may have it here. It may be packed in my stuff that may never come to me. But either way, I don't know where the hell it is right now. I would definitely be using it with this one. A nice long piece of plexi, but I hate plexi. Unfortunately, it's a Victory Games map, so it's got a little bit of pooch to it. I think I wanted to talk about after this turn, and then I forgot about, but and it's no big deal anymore with the file joiner that I have. I kind of complain about the games in this system so much, and that's because of the effect they have on me mentally, that I have a hard time dealing with them. I absolutely adore what Zucker has done in terms of the design of the trade-offs in the very core system of it. I really, really do. I love this idea of, okay, I have a choice. I can either spend, and it's what causes me heartache, but I have a choice. I can spend the action point to move, but if I spend it, it's costing me things that are useful overall. Mainly the attrition side of it is what I am concerned about there. The more I split up my forces, the more I have to spend. The more I rely on initiative rolls, the less I have to spend, but I'm not going to be moving as hard and as fast. So the only part of that that's kind of iffy is when you really need to do something, you can ensure it happens. You can spend the points, you can push a little harder, you can always make sure. But it's so not in my nature to push that you very, very often see situations like happen historically throughout, military engagements, where somebody is just not doing what you expect them to. They're not doing what you want them to. And it's especially difficult with the guys with decent leadership ratings, or very good, like Davout, Bessier, Napoleon, where it's like, yeah, there's no way I'm going to spend. I've got a 5 and 6. Well, sometimes that 1 in 6 chance of a failure is so bad that you absolutely should be spending. I have a really tough time doing that. Anyone with a lesser value than that, it becomes a little easier, but it becomes a little easier to spend for them when it's really, really important. But quite often something will end up kind of out of position because, say, Elan, it's an important position, but it's not absolutely vital. You don't spend, and he doesn't make his roll. And you get the foot dragging, etc., that I like with the command rolls. I think some players probably, by using the command system maybe more wisely than I do, will maybe get a little bit more control than is appropriate. I'm not sure. Certainly, I don't feel like I have more control than is appropriate with the Austrians, and I'm using their command system quite a bit because their points are going to go away and their leaders suck. However, since I'm on the defensive, I can kind of sit in a static position for a little while and try to accumulate points. They're so far from their command center, though, they don't, from their supply source with their command center, that they don't really accumulate a lot of points. Now, the idea of adding, say, some of the Chromie optional additions and stuff, like if I'm going to dispatch a command, it takes a while to get there, a la, the CWB system where the orders take a while to get there. The problem I have with that is that I generally don't know where, I'm going to want to put my pieces. And it gives you no capacity to move your pieces where they really should be in kind of emergency situations, except through the initiative system, which really, really ends up favoring either tremendous pre-planning, which I'm not good at, but could possibly manage to some extent, or the side with the better command ratings. And yeah, I think the Austrians would just get so hosed by that rule, because the French can rely on their initiative ratings fairly well. The Austrians cannot. And the only exception to that is if you're really close to your command center, you can operate pretty well. So your armies don't end up spread out as much. I think the problem with it is that the game was designed without that rule in place, without that rule as an assumed rule. So it's designed to play pretty well and pretty historically without it. And then when you add it, you're adding this extra layer of burden. The extra mechanical burden might well be worth it if the game was designed a little differently. Like if the initiative ratings were just a little, were a little bit higher across the board if you're using that. That would be kind of cool. But as it stands, and I'm not sure how much I would like that, it feels like that rule is kind of the administrative march rolled up in with things. So with the administrative march, you have to pick where you're going turns in advance, and then you get to save some action points for it. So I look at this not so much as the headquarters is sending orders, hey, Roseburg, you need to shift a little bit, in order to do these things. Instead, what it's really doing is it's representing an overall command, flexibility, leadership that's deployed out to those units, etc., to enable them to make good choices, which is a little bit more hand-wavy than the idea of commands actually tracing out there. But how realistic is it that all those decisions should be made at the headquarters? And any other decision really would require the initiative ratings of the leaders to be a little bit better, because they should be able to cope. And that includes major generals, by the way, who would be absolutely stuck unless commands went to them. So, yeah, forces do need to be able to react to their local conditions better than they would be allowed to while using that optional rule. Using the base rules, they have some flexibility. You can make sure something does something. Both have their problems, there's no question. There's definitely a clearer line of understanding as to what's happening in these cases. But then you get to, okay, well, look, if I'm being obviously trapped, sure, there's some chance that I would fall into that trap. There's no question there if my orders, weren't very good or whatever. But I think it would happen way too often in terms of just the local circumstances crushing you down. So I'm happier with the base system. And that's one of the things, there's just so much as you go on in this series, and it gets more and more refined. And maybe it's because players who play it a lot. And so what happens is they're so used to dealing with the basic system that the addition of some of these extra rules, the extra screening forces, trying to think. There's so much that gets added later on, and it feels more and more like a burden to me. This one's not bad as long as you don't play with the optionals. It's very close to the Napoleon at Bay system. Got to worry about bridges more though. That's all. But I like the map better for this one. So for the French turn here on the 27th, yeah, I haven't taken care of the Austrians yet. I have some initiative rolls to make, but we're not expecting much to happen. These guys are not going to be moving. They've got too much trouble. Liechtenstein might move. Everything else is kind of digging in at the bridges. Napoleon laid down a pontoon bridge, though. And, well, maybe I do react, because the placement of that, more or less, destroys this river line. And this is the problem. There's nowhere where you can really find a defensive line. It's not even the case that I can, that I'm going to have to wait very long. Now, Napoleon and Bessier can cross as a force. They're 48 strength points or less. During the reaction stage, possibly. You're only allowed one force per turn, per phase to cross the bridge, essentially 48 strength points. But they all have to be under one commander, or else you end up with some problems. We had mud as the weather, which I thought might cause a problem because Napoleon and Bessier together are a fairly large force. They might have been in a position where they couldn't cross. And in fact, they might not be able to cross very well at this point. With the bridge blown, maybe it makes sense to move Charles and other forces, if they can, to try to concentrate on where Napoleon's putting his crossing. He'd have to repair all those bridges otherwise. And bridge repair, though, is fairly easy. If we find the bridge table, I think it's just a die roll. It's not like destruction. Yeah. So building a bridge is expensive, but repairing a damaged primary bridge is not a significant problem. It's harder than dropping the pontoon down, but it does mean that I probably don't want to be standing where I am. The only problem is it's reaction move. That's a hard time to get away. Do I just want to give up ground? I don't know, man. This is the part of the game that's hard for me. Is how much did I slow him down? Is it enough? I don't know. What gives points? I don't fucking remember. So this is a 1 time to Vienna. 2. So basically, France can't win the game, but they can get a conditional victory by taking Vienna. Given that, you kind of beat the French at the extent of their supply line, which might be here and then again in front of Vienna. Those are kind of the places where they're going to be less capable of doing things. So I don't think I want to stand here at this river. I just want to slow them down, and now I begin my retreat again. So the Austrian, first of all, I went back. I moved the center of operations. I want it next to the Danube. Now I can sail it down the Danube. It could actually go down to here or something. I doubt that I'll be sending it that far. But I feel pretty safe. As long as I'm 1, 2, 3, probably, back here to support operations forward. Although I will have to kind of cover for it against Roseburg here. Now, or Rosenberg, I can't remember. So yeah, I'm pulling out now, and the reason for moving the center of operations, it's going to take me a while to filter my troops in. I'm not going to be using commands as rapidly as I'd like. I would like to get more points, although I'm working my way up, because there are going to be times when I say, yeah, I absolutely need to move this unit. But that's about it. And I guess we move on to the Austrian side of the turn. At the end of the turn, Maximilian's not withdrawing. He's still fortifying, same with Rosenberg up here. Charles managed to get away. Louis, I spent a point for. Liechtenstein didn't get anywhere. Those guys didn't get anywhere. French reaction. Napoleon crossed here. Some risk, not much. I think he actually lost a strength point. Mouton with the guard, still not coming in. But you can see we're positioning ourselves Lefebvre here in a position where I can rebuild that bridge. That'll help a great deal. That's a permanent bridge which has unlimited capacity. So once that's repaired, we don't have much trouble, and we can somebody can pick up the pontoon and take it with them up that way. It might be important for Hiller to get moving. We don't want to get cut off there. Didn't happen this turn. Went for a die roll. At some point, I got to consider flinging this back a little further, because that's really my next river line, my next point to delay them. It's also kind of important that I stop them here, because Passau is too important. We have to prevent them from getting Passau as long as we can. You know, so far the Austrians are taking a lot more in attrition losses just because of these forces here. Could I have resolved that better? I don't know. Let me do the count. Say I'd been here. The problem is if I move this thing, it's no longer a supply source, I think. I have to look that up. But if I do shift that, which I could have done this turn, let me see. Okay, so it's not necessary, which means maybe I can halt the bleeding over there. Difficulty, of course, is I won't be able to use command points this next turn. How far is Hiller? So however far I can go, I'm fine. I got a 26 hex range, right? It's really hard to find things in this. Yeah, 26 movement points. So yeah, let's move this. Get this shifted up. That'll get more of my stuff in command. Should I have been there originally? Maybe, because maybe I could have shifted it this way. I was where I was for stupid reasons, and you know, it's just there's so much you have to balance out to figure out where to put that. It would have been great if the game just said put it here, you know, but that's something that you had the capability to put wherever you like, and it kind of makes sense because I could fling it a little further forward in order to establish the kind of, you know, a kind of counterattack or something like that. But I didn't need to. I thought, hey, I'm fine with the French one because I don't need to, I can trace from here. I can't really trace from back there. But with the Austrian one, you know, I put it where I thought would work, but obviously I didn't take everything into consideration. it's a thing where, you know, the first time you play it in any given long period of time, you're going to probably be faced with this horrible decision that you don't have a good answer for unless you've memorized it from earlier plays. I'm pretty sure I had it better positioned other times I played, but because I don't remember feeling the need to move it, and I definitely needed to move it here. But that'll be good. That'll, I think, put this into supply. Should have done it long. Yeah, it should have been set up with it, but whatever. That's life, right?